Hey, what's going on, guys? So I haven't done a long breakdown like this in a while, but I think it's important that I do it just because one of the reasons why Breaking Barriers United was established was to bring peace, resolve, and resolution to this strained relationship between law enforcement and the community. That being said, the case that I'm going to break down today involves an LA County deputy named Trevor Kirk, who utilized force on a female a few months back. I think it was last year, and he was recently found guilty of willful deprivation of civil rights and use of excessive force against this lady, and is now facing a 10-year prison sentence. So what I want to do is I want to break the video down, and then I want to talk about whether or not I believe the sentence that he received was justified or unjustified, and what the force that he used against her, was that justified or unjustified. And so before I actually show you the video, I want you guys to understand the call for service where deputies responded to a store because there was a belief that these people committed a robbery. Now in California, a robbery means that you take something by force or fear against another person. There's a clear difference between a theft and a robbery. A theft, typically, if it's under $950, is a misdemeanor crime. A robbery, it doesn't matter the amount, it's a felony crime. So these deputies are responding to a felonious crime, and whether you realize it or not, felonious crimes are treated differently than misdemeanor crimes when it relates to utilizing force. So I just wanted to make that clear as I distinguish between the difference between a theft and a robbery. So next, we also have to realize that the two people the deputies encounter, they are named or they are identified as the suspects of the crime. Loss prevention was the callers. They identified them when deputies show up. They take the male half into custody, and the female half, she is standing by recording, but she has also been identified as loss prevention as the other suspect. That is important for you to know because it plays into the force that was used later on against her. So let's actually watch the encounter now.
Tonight, a deputy convicted for this violent takedown caught on camera. And Mike, that deputy could now face years in prison? Yeah, that's right. This is federal charges that he was convicted of today in a federal court stemming from that incident up at the Winco. This all started when the deputies responded to what was originally called a robbery. It was more of a shoplifting once everything was reviewed.
Now, the reason why what he just said is important is because calls for service can go out as one thing and get changed later. But sometimes people will use that as a way to say, oh, this was just a petty theft. Well, even though it may work itself out to be a petty theft or shoplifting, it doesn't change the initial response of the deputies or officers going. For example, if I get a call for an assault with a deadly weapon, and that's how it goes out, I'm going to respond to that scene thinking like, oh, wow, this could be pretty dangerous. It's an assault with a deadly weapon. And I get there and I found out that, you know, one person was hit with a plastic spoon. Now it goes from being an assault with a deadly weapon to a misdemeanor battery crime. But that initial call for service is going to prompt a very, very specific response by officers. And so we can't get distracted by it just being, hey, a shoplifting call, because it didn't come out that way. It came out as a robbery, which is a felonious crime, like I mentioned earlier.
And here's what happened when the whole encounter broke out.
I'm telling you to tell the police in the room. No, you can't touch me. You can't touch me.
Yeah, now that deputy was found guilty of federal civil rights violation for using excessive force against that woman, according to the U.S. Department of Justice. You see him there also pepper spraying her. Now the DOJ says that the woman was not even given any commands prior to the altercation occurring, saying that what she was doing was just recording the video. Now ultimately the deputy was charged. He took it to court and was found guilty today. Sheriff's Department releasing a statement. I want to read part of it to you. It says, quote, law enforcement officers not only take an oath to uphold the law, but are held to the highest standards of accountability and integrity. No deputy is above the law, and any abuse of power which violates the public's trust will not be tolerated.
So I want to pause there and look at the statement by the LA County Sheriff's Department. Now, this statement and this statement alone is a very, very true statement. But does this statement match up to what we just witnessed with this use of force? I don't believe it does. I've actually seen a lot of uses of force. I just did one recently where some correctional officers in New York utilized unnecessary force, excessive force against an inmate. And this statement right here matches up well with that. But the situation that I just showed you guys doesn't match up. Now, we have to realize she was an identified suspect of a robbery in the initial call for service. And so that gives the deputies the reason to lawfully detain her. And so because of that, regardless of whether or not she's recording or not, they can utilize the necessary force in order to take her into custody or detain her. Now, the subject in question is, was it reasonable? Now, I watched another video. This isn't the initial video I seen. The video I saw, I don't know if it's out there for the public yet, but at some point in time, the deputy's partner actually points at her and says, hey, look, that's the other suspect. And so the officer, the deputy that we're watching his body cam, he goes and he throws her to the ground. And so a lot of people will say, well, that was unnecessary force. Well, was it, or was it just a use of controlling force is what I like to call it. It's a level 1 use of force, which means that we are utilizing, our hands or whatever it may be to control that person, get them into custody. And like I've said time and time again, use of force, no matter how, whether it's a level 1, level 2, level 3, whatever it may be, it's never meant to be pretty. So despite her yelling, despite her screaming, we can't be distracted by that. We have to look and focus on, does the level of force that he's using match up with her resistance? Now, there's going to be some people that say, well, did he give her commands and stuff? And I don't necessarily know if he gave her clear instructions to get on the ground and surrender. However, at the very most, I think this would be more training, maybe a couple of days off, maybe some type of write-up, but I don't believe it matches up to a 10-year prison sentence in federal prison because he utilized what they say unnecessary force. What they actually charged him was willful deprecation of civil rights. But in order to prove willful, that means that he had to go in there with the mindset that he was going to willfully deprive her of her constitutional rights. And that's what it was. He did not, no matter what else happened, he was willfully going to deprive her of her constitutional rights. But that doesn't necessarily match up simply because her rights at that moment in time were kind of removed just because she was a suspect of a felony crime. So as a police officer, if somebody has committed a felony crime, I have the right to detain them and take away their rights at that moment in time as long as I have probable cause. So I guess what I'm trying to get at is I've broken down many videos, and let me be clear with this. This is just my opinion. This is nobody else's opinion but my own. But in all the videos that I've reviewed, I have seen much harsher uses of force be found justified, that were rightfully justified, than this one. And so to say that this reaches a 10-year prison sentence, I don't think is right. I think because of all the political pressures that be, it's like almost goes back to the squeaky wheel gets the oil. There's a lot of attention on this because of the civil rights lawsuit that they were trying to make a statement, and I think it's wrong. This officer, he's 3 years on, this deputy's 3 years on. He's an Army veteran. He has a family. He doesn't, to my knowledge, he doesn't have any other any disciplinary issues at his department. And so at the very least, this is a training issue to say, hey, look, you need to learn how to de-escalate a little bit more, maybe give her some more time to respond to your use of force commands, and then maybe get some time off, days on the beach is what they call it, and then, remediate to some training, but not 10 years in prison. I don't think it matches up. I'll be the first to tell you guys, and I've said it many times before, as deputies, as police officers, we are held to a higher standard, no doubt about it. And I'll be the first to call out bad policing if I see it. And could this been done differently? Yeah, I think it could have been done differently. I don't think anybody's arguing that, but not to the standpoint of that this deputy should receive a 10-year federal prison sentence because they're saying that it was unjustified. I think the lady wasn't complying, and just because you're filming doesn't necessarily make you all of a sudden an innocent person. You are the named person. Loss prevention identified you as being somebody that was a suspect in a robbery. The deputies have a job to go detain all the people involved and then decipher from there. So at that moment in time, if the deputy looks at you and tells you to put your hands behind your back, put your hands behind your back, allow them to put the handcuffs on you so they can figure it out. So was she being passive aggressive? Yes, she was. Did he go out there and not give her a chance to comply with the instructions? Yeah, I think he could have been better in that department. But again, like I said, his conviction does not, I don't think is appropriate for the level of force that we saw witnessed in this video. I want to know what you guys think in the comment section below, but this is very important. And the reason why this video is so important is because if deputies or officers are going to get 10-year prison sentences for things like this, is going to put their life in even more danger and your life as a civilian, because they're going to be way more apprehensive of utilizing any level of force because they don't want to be prosecuted and thrown out to the wolves like this guy was here in this video. So what do you guys think in the comment section below?